Okay, and really quick, as always, there's an attendance sign-in sheet for all the delegates. If you're a delegate, you can sit up here. Any alternates can sit up here if your delegate's not here. The meeting is being recorded, so I wanted to mention that as well. And we have public comment for each agenda. So we do have two agendas tonight. One is the reorganization meeting, and then one is our voting meeting. So if there's any public comment for the reorganization meeting agenda, if you want to come forward, I'll have you now. And it's limited to 4 minutes as well. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. No public comment? All right, moving on then. We need to appoint to conduct nominations and elections. Can I have a nomination for a temporary chairman to conduct the offices for board president, vice president for the year January 1st, 2025 through December 30th, 2025?
Kyle Coleman.
Second.
Who's second, I'm sorry.
Corey.
Thank you. All right. Everyone in favor for Kyle being the temporary chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. All right, Kyle, you're up.
All right, nominations for vice chairman.
This is, we're on the chairman.
Oh,
You're temporary chairman.
I'm sorry.
Yep,
I
it's
saw, I
okay,
didn't
it's
say
okay.
temporary for there. All right, nominations for,
Make a motion to nominate Kyle Coleman.
I'd second
roll call, can we just say aye, everybody, for favor?
I think you have to have a motion to close nominations. Well, you have to ask if there's other nominations and then, right?
So who made the
it. I
motion?
didn't catch the name, Corey.
Kyle.
Corey made the motion that Kyle Coleman is the chairman.
Yes. I seconded it. Yeah, but, oh, now we're,
I don't think we need a second for that one.
okay, sorry.
Is there any other nominations? So I'll nominate myself. I know the work that goes into it. I believe I can nominate myself.
I'll second that.
Can I get a motion to, oh, Kyle, now you're up. Motion to close the nominations.
Motion to close nominations?
A motion.
Second.
So now, since you have more than one nomination, you'll have to do a roll call, and they'll each have to say who they want, and then that'll be transferred, whoever's chosen to the slate of officers at the end.
Supposed to poll for 3 times.
So are we just going right down through, and
You start with me.
they're just gonna say whoever they're voting for?
Yes, after the nominations have been closed.
Okay, so we'll start with Mela.
Kyle.
Oh, so I don't know.
Ashley.
Okay.
Kyle.
No, I'm gonna abstain for myself.
I was gonna say, were you gonna abstain?
No, you're allowed to vote for
You can vote
yourself.
for yourself.
I don't believe in that.
He is allowed to vote for himself, but as the chair, he's also allowed to pass and vote last. You can always pass, but I don't believe he can abstain, but I think he can pass.
I'll pass then.
Oh, I'm Kyle.
I'll vote for Kyle.
I'll vote for Kyle.
I'll vote for Kyle.
Kyle, you're in.
Okay. Now we can do vice chair, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I nominate Christie.
I'll second that.
Any other motions?
I nominate Amanda.
Who?
She nominated you for vice chair.
Deny.
Okay.
All right, close the motions.
I move to close the nominations.
Do we need seconds on those ones too? So
I'll
a second.
Second.
You don't need seconds for the nominations, you need seconds to close the nominations.
Okay. All right, this one, since we've only got one, we can do a collective roll call, correct?
It'll just go to the slate of officers, you don't even need to do a
Okay.
vote, because it'll be voted in the slate and items used.
All right. So Christie is vice chair. records officer.
Secretary.
Top of the page.
I'll nominate
Oh
Madeline
my
Lewis.
God.
I'll nominate Madeline Lewis.
Need a second?
Second.
I'm gonna nominate Greg.
I'll second that.
Motion to close.
I motion to close it.
Second.
All right, roll call. Yeah,
I
Who-
accept myself, you know.
okay. Greg. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, Mela.
Nayla or Greg?
me,
I'll go Greg.
Greg.
Mela.
Greg.
What was that?
I don't even know where the spot was at.
Five Mela. So that was
Where-
Mela.
Okay.
Yep, 5 Mela, 4 Greg.
All right.
I have 4 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I'm missing. Sorry.
Good to move on?
Yep.
Good to move on? All right. Open records officer.
I'll nominate Christie. Oh, actually, the open records officer should be Nayla. Can I withdraw my nomination?
Who did you say? I'm sorry, Greg.
Well, since you're the one who'll have the records, it should be you. But I said Christie first,
Okay.
so.
You changed
You
it.
don't need a
But I'm gonna withdraw Christie, and Mela should be the open records officer by my nomination.
I'll mention to close the nominations.
Second.
Roll call.
We don't have to.
Still don't want to do it though?
What's that?
Still shouldn't do it?
No, that'll be part of the slate of officers in G then.
Okay.
You can do a roll call vote there.
All right. Next is the tax appeals board voting delegates. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so we have a tax appeals board by requirement by law and also by our bylaws, by Act 32. The tax appeal board hears any appeals by taxpayers related to earned income tax. Prior to me being in this position, it sounds like we had those a little more frequently, but some of the members who have been here longer could probably speak to that better. But this board passed a resolution a few years before I took office where the tax office now has the authority to abate penalty and late filing fee, but not interest, one time for taxpayers. So even if, you know, they've been paying taxes for 15 years, if there was one time in those 15 years they were late, the tax office now has the authority to abate penalty and late filing fee. With that resolution by this board, that has pretty much stopped all the need for appeals, because those people who have a very rare circumstance where just something went wrong, we can now abate that as a tax office, and that was the majority of appeals that the board heard, from my understanding. Since I've been in the office for 2.5 years, there's not been a single appeal that the board has had to hear. But from my understanding, prior to that resolution, that was the majority of appeals.
So-
I have a question. If we, do you mind, anybody mind?
No.
If we change the Keystone or whatever, is that rule still in play?
Yes, we would still have to have a tax appeals
Oh,
board
yeah.
here locally. Yep. And regardless of who the collector is, there still has to be a tax appeals board that can hear taxpayer appeals. And in fact, it's probably more important if somebody else is the collector, because that's another check and balance on that collector.
Okay.
Can more than one person be, can a delegate nominate more than one person to the board?
Yeah, I don't.
So the whole For some reason, I thought those appeals were done like in a regular meeting, like the whole TCC board voted on that, but that's not the
The
case.
appeals board would bring a recommendation back to the full board,
Okay.
but it would be a group who would hear that appeal.
Because I would nominate the delegates from Castania Township, the delegate from the city of Block Haven, and the delegate from Woodward Township to be on the appeals board.
Um, I believe, I can check the bylaws, but I think we have to have specific names, because they can be like,
Well, I don't know specifically who the primary delegate is. I know who's here tonight, but I don't know if this is the primary delegate.
How you
Who
Kyle.
are you thinking of?
So it would be,
Me, Kyle, and what was the other one? Cindy?
Yeah.
And you,
Spread out for the county.
based on your meeting.
Are you, Greg, you the primary as well?
so then Greg, so we have it right for the minutes, you're nominating yourself, Brandon, and Kyle.
Yep.
And once again, that we still, whatever our decision would be, we would bring it back to the whole board, just as a recommendation. Can I make a motion to close?
do the alternates. The alternates too.
You wanna do those now as well?
Yeah, it looks like they're all under the same.
Can we just bundle this all in one motion then? Greg, you wanna add to it, since you made the initial motion?
We have to have three delegates and then 2 alternates.
Is the delegate from Liberty Township here?
So now,
Is the delegate from Lamar here?
No, I don't think.
Is the delegate from Bald Eagle Township here?
They don't have one yet?
Is the delegate from Mill Hall Borough here?
Karen?
Okay. I would nominate Karen. Is there a delegate from Porter Township here?
Dunstable Township's here though, Greg, you want to expedite it?
Well, is there,
He's looking at numbers.
Is Livingston Borough?
Oh, you don't get the percentages.
Livingston Borough's here as well.
I'll make a motion that we nominate Corey.
and
Or, we just need the 2.
Corey, are you with the borough or township?
Dunstable Township.
So then for the minutes, Christie, that was your nomination for Corey.
Yeah.
The other 4 was for Greg.
Corey.
So what was it again,
We only
Corey?
have 2 so far though, don't
We only need 2 delegates.
2 alternates.
Okay.
Or 2 alternates.
we? Sorry.
So it was June, or
Karen?
Karen, I'm sorry. That's what I
Karen and
called
Corey.
June.
Yeah.
And Corey, okay.
I'll make a motion to close nominations.
I'll second.
If I'm reading this correctly, we're up to G, approval of slate of officers.
Yep.
So. Let's see here. Myself as chair, vice, yeah, refresh me here.
Christie?
Yeah. Okay.
I think we probably should read it after.
Am I allowed to, or yeah, I can read off the.
I would just read that as it
The whole
states, because then it's all clear,
Yeah.
and then somebody can motion to
Alright.
move that.
So I need a motion to resolve that Kyle Coleman serves as the elected chairman, Christie Brooks serves as the elected vice chairperson. Do you like that? Mayla Moore serves as the elected secretary, and Mayla Moore serves as the open records officer of the Clinton Tax Collection Committee, the year commencing January 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Now we can do a roll call.
I don't think we have to do a roll call.
No.
We already did all that.
You can if you want to, I mean,
Is it-
you should still vote on the slate, but you can do it as a roll call, or you can just do it as an aye, or.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Alright.
And then I'll
No,
make
I
a
need-
motion that we adjourn the reorganization.
Who motioned it?
Christie motioned to adjourn, Greg seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Alright. Before we move on for the next thing, Christie, I know you did the agenda for tonight, but at the meeting that we last had, tonight was specifically for a reorganizational meeting only. So do we need to
This is part of the reorganization. We have to appoint for January. This is appointing for the new year.
okay,
So all of these terms expire at the end of, well, they expire at the end of the year.
right. I'm just saying from a legal standpoint, tonight's meeting was it was for reorganizational only.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is, this stuff here, if there's a deadline for it, should we maybe advertise and have another meeting to,
I think the advertisement listed both a reorg meeting and a voting meeting.
okay,
And this meeting was actually set last year. It wasn't set at last meeting, this meeting was.
so
set
this
last
one
year.
was already scheduled
Yes.
prior, okay? So
Yeah,
I was gonna
just-
say, because at the last meeting, it was motioned and second for just
Yeah,
reorganization.
and sorry, I apologize,
No.
that was misunderstood, because this has, not that I'm gonna say always, but this has went with the reorganization meeting,
Okay,
the way that everything falls together.
so this meeting was scheduled last December, January for the whole, we listed the whole.
Yes,
The only thing that was changed was the time.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, that
It
makes
was
sense.
originally 2:30.
Okay. Well then, I'm good with that. Do we want to do another pledge of the flag, or are we good to keep going?
Just keep going down through. You
Just
have
call
to-
this meeting to order?
I think your appointment starts January 1st though, so I
Oh.
think Christie will run this meeting and
Okay.
Yeah.
and Jerry, I believe you'll take the minutes unless the chairperson wants to appoint somebody else.
No, I'll continue.
All right, so public comment again is limited to 4 minutes. We're following the voting meeting. Does anyone have any public comment for the voting meeting agenda? All right. Moving on to item C, can I get an approval to reappoint Jason Confair of Saxon and Stump as the solicitor for the Clinton TCC from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025 at the rate of $325 an hour in accordance with the engagement letter signed on October 29th, 2024.
Is he still willing to work for us? I don't know where he left things when he left here last week, or 2 weeks ago.
He is,
So
yeah,
somebody's communicated with him since then?
yes.
I'll make that
Yeah,
motion.
He would have come today, but he's in California. Was that what he said when we first talked to him? Because we gave him, we told him when we were meeting in November, and then we
Right.
had our reorg meeting set for December. And he said, I won't be able to make the December meeting.
I'd prefer he not be here unless we absolutely need him for something, you know?
I agree, I think that should come from the board if
Yep.
you want him here, otherwise we're gonna blow through his budget
Yeah,
immediately.
and that's what he had emailed me, and he said, I took from the meeting that I wasn't going to be needed at the reorganization meeting.
Right,
So I said, yeah, we didn't mention about you having you here, so.
mhm.
So if we have them tonight, does that mean we can bring this up in January or another meeting too?
We need a solicitor, yes.
But we can change it. It would maybe have, it would have to be you tonight, is what you're saying.
We have to approve him tonight, yes. But if another month, another solicitor comes in and says, I'll be your solicitor for the TCC, and the committee agrees, then we can appoint that new solicitor. We, of course, give Jason not just a heads up of, tomorrow you're not our solicitor anymore. We should give him a heads up of, this is happening and you may not be our solicitor.
And I think the stipulation too was if we do break ties with him, any work that he's in the middle, he has to be paid up through that or whatever.
You're correct.
So, but there's no other contract agreement that we're locked in.
You know, the bylaws are very short on solicitors, it's just 2 sentences, and it just says the board shall appoint a solicitor to resolve any legal issues if they arise.
The only thing, nothing, I mean, it sounds like the bylaws are kind of, from a wording standpoint, situated, but that's what we hired him for. He sat here whatever that was, 2 weeks ago, and said that bylaws weren't his. So, I don't know if he misspoke or whatever, but hopefully we don't need him for anything beyond with that stuff, with the bylaws.
Brendan made the motion, I'll second the motion.
Right. Everyone in favor of Jason Comter being our solicitor for the 2025 year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Now, we need to approve the reappointment of Baker Tilly as the auditors of the tax office financial statements in Act 32 compliance for the year January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025 at a cost of $21,625 plus expenses and alternative procedure costs. Baker
And
Tilly does a great
I
job.
was gonna say, I work with Baker Tilly regularly since they come in and do the audits, and I can certainly answer any questions that you guys have.
Yep, I worked with Baker Tilly when I worked for the county, and they were great. So I have nothing to say.
I'd make that motion.
I'll second it.
Who seconded, I'm sorry.
I did.
All in favor of Baker Tilly performing the audit for the 2025 year signified by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next on the list is to approve the 2025 Clinton TCC liability insurance through Penn Prime Trust for a total cost of $4,650.
Christie, did that cost go down? Didn't you say you got a new proposal?
Yeah, I did. Yes, thank you. There was a new proposal issued, when is it today? The 9th. That cost went down. We had a credit available for 2025. It was $590 credit. So the new 2025 plan cost will be $4,060.
And there's no change to the coverage, just in the
Yeah,
cost.
yeah, we had a credit from last year. Yeah,
It's a credit for prior years that had not been redistributed to the tax collection committees. So it's being distributed at one time.
Right,
Just one payout.
Yeah. And just so everybody understands, and I'm happy to, answer any questions from my experiences with these things, but as you guys are a governing body, separate from the taxing jurisdiction, separate from the tax collector, and this is the liability insurance to cover you and this board as a governing body.
I have a motion to approve. Okay.
I'll second.
Everyone in favor, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed?
I do abstain. I'm the chairman, or the chairman of the board of the Penn Prime Insurance Trust.
Ford? Moving on, we need to approve the 2025 Clinton TCC budget. And we did increase the cost on that for the audit, advertising, because we've been advertising for more meetings. There's a little bit, there was more put into the bond insurance the TCC bond and the insurance line item. And then the legal fees, of course, they're gonna go up because our solicitor's fees are increased from our old solicitor. And then certification and reserve.
Who's the bond through?
Traveler?
Yes, okay. And I requested that Christie add some cost to the Act 32 certification. It's required that one person for every TCC collector be certified, Act 32 certified. Currently, I'm Act 32 certified. That certification is $200. I don't know if that'll change, which is why it's not a multiple of 200, but I had recommended that as the tax office continues to operate, that as it is, there should be 2 certified collectors in there. It's not required that you have more than one, but I think it's a good practice to have 2 people certified in case of any turnover.
So that's why that went up from 24 to 25.
Uh,
Because 24
No,
had
the Act 30
$200.
Yeah, the Act 32 certification was $200 last year, and that was just one $200 certification. Just in case the cost increases from $200 to $250, I wanted 2 people to be able to get certified.
Nick, do you wanna explain to, where this money is paid from?
Yeah,
And other TCs, how they may operate for their budget?
How it operates now with our TCC, because again, we're a little unique in where we have the taxing body, also one of the taxing authorities, and the taxing authority that would have the largest chunk of the budget anyways. The school district, through the tax office fund, pays for the complete TCC budget every year since 2012, when Act 32 became in effect. Every county does it a little different. Probably the most common method for a TCC budget is that the different municipalities and school districts, the taxing authorities within that county, all pay a portion of the budget based on their total EIT collections. And generally, that's just withheld from the EIT money that's dispersed to them. It's not the TCC actually billing it. So the collector will look at the budget, they'll withhold the right amount for that year, pay that to the TCC. The TCC keeps that in their own account and pays those expenses. With that being said, though, the collectors, usually when they're not a taxing authority, when they're one of the bigger collectors, they pay for a lot of these fees that are part of our budget, which really don't need to be, but like the audit, you would still have to approve who audits your collector, but the collector is the one who's going to pay that auditor in a majority of counties. Same with the Act 32 certification. They're required to have somebody certified, but they're the ones who cover that cost. Most TCCs have their liability insurance, their advertising for public meetings, and then a solicitor, which the solicitor varies greatly in the counties because sometimes it's just, hey, we need one sentence changed in our bylaw, does this look okay? You know, quarter-hour bill. Others, they have a solicitor at every single meeting, and that can be more costly, but generally, that's how the majority of counties work.
So just to try and understand that and use a scenario, if we would go with this third-party deal with Keystone, some of this budget stuff's gonna go away, obviously. Is that what you're?
Depends on how you negotiate the contract. The standard contract and the contract that you guys saw from Keystone, you threw it out, which is totally fine, but you would have to make sure that's in a new contract, but that contract stated that they would be responsible for the Act 32 certification, for their bonding, for their auditing costs. They would be responsible for all those costs. So the remaining costs to us under that contract that you saw would have been a reserve if you wanted, legal fees, and then the insurance and advertising.
So that contract that we did away with that Keystone provided, it was in that contract that they.
Correct, and generally that's how they operate in most counties, as well as Berkheimer.
Right.
I can't speak for capital tax, I'm not sure, they're a little smaller, but I would assume they operate that way, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
So if a TCC has a bank account, does there need to be a treasurer for that bank account then too? So we only have a chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. I was just,
This would be a better question for our solicitor who
I
handles
wasn't
this
sure
usually,
if
but
you
the
knew this.
TCC would have to have a bank account separate from, especially separate from the school district since they're the tax collector.
Right.
But yes, the TCC would have to have their own bank account, and then you could structure it however you want in how those fees are collected. The TCC can bill every municipality. The TCC, how it normally works, just for ease, is they ask their collector, withhold this budget, X amount of dollars, from everybody based on the percentage of EIT that was collected last year. The collector pays that over to the TCC keeps that in their account. The next year, they say, our budget's $8,000, we still have $3,000 left from last year, you need to now withhold $5,000 from everybody based on their collection percentage. Which school district then would pay 58% of that, Lock Haven would pay 12 or 13% of that, based on their collections.
Thank you for explaining.
But as of right now, this budget is completely funded by your collector in the school district, the full TCC, which is how it's operated for 12 years. Now, it's not good or bad, it's just a little different than other counties, and it's how it operates.
So I have a question about the audit. So you made it 30,000 even though it's 21,625. Is it usually that, do we need that much of a, I asked you about if you had the invoice from last year, but
I sent them to you.
the invoice? Invoice. You sent me the proposal. I was wondering if you had the invoice from last year.
No, there was 4 invoices I sent to you. I sent you for 22 and 2030.
Okay.
If you give me just a minute, I can tell you the
I was
total
gonna say, did
cost
you just do
last
it
year.
today? Because I've been looking and.
Say how much they were.
I do know from Berkheimer, the audit, the insurance, and certification are all part of the fee, the $5,000 total we pay, I think, $3 million.
So last year, the cost of the audit was $20,600. That was the, just the standard billing, but then in that contract, it lists out that they bill for additional fees, additional audit procedures, and the total for the entire year came to $24,764.31. And that was with their travel, out-of-pocket, administrative, additional audit procedures, that was with all those additional costs, so it was about.
So that was for, so that meant the 24 budget of 27.5. Is that how you, when you say that?
Yes, that was under the budget of $27.5, but it was about $4,700 in excess of just the flat fee.
Okay.
Well, Mayla, I did not send them to you. I apologize. I had them, what probably happened is I had them pulled up to send to you and I got sidetracked and
I get it.
I apologize, I did not. I looked at them because I even added them up and wrote down the numbers and
Okay.
I was like,
So
okay.
it's 24,764 last year.
Correct.
Okay. Thank
May
you.
I ask a question again? Since she brought this up, okay, we budgeted $30,000. Okay, but we might only spend 25, but there you got a $5,000 cushion, and that's what you are looking at, right?
I mean, I don't think we're looking at that, I think that it gives us a cushion to work.
Yeah,
I think
you
in-
don't have to spend $30,000.
No, absolutely not.
You spend, but at least you know you have 30,000 in there if something would happen.
It's
Right.
always
And-
better when you budget, to
Correct.
overestimate than
Correct.
under.
And again,
So-
because this is really built into your guys' cost of collections, because the appointed collector is the one paying these costs, it's really not the same as other budgets where if you don't spend it, the TCC still has that because they've allocated it. Here, it's just, we know that we can make worse work if we spend this amount of money, and we try to stay under that, but it's not the TCC actually expending that money, even though they have to pass the budget, which is what you should do. But it's a little different than how the system works in most places.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
I'll second.
Greg, did you second that?
Yep.
All in favor of approving the 2025 TCC budget at $41,000, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Next up is setting the 2025 TCC meeting dates. In the past, we've set a meeting for June and for December.
I can give you the history there if you want.
Do you want to go down through that?
Yeah, so
To
we,
say?
the TCC used to meet from its inception 4 times a year. The bylaws required meeting 4 times a year. And the majority of those meetings were either 2-minute meetings because there was nothing to discuss, or it was those tax appeals that used to be more common. Since then, the meetings that were really important are the summer meeting, because you guys review the audit at that point in time, and you guys also review the weighted vote at that point in time. Both of those have to be submitted to DCED by July 1st. And that's when this board reviews both the weighted vote and the audit annually. And then the December meeting obviously is important because that's the reorganization meeting. That's when you have to approve a budget, you have to approve a solicitor, you have to approve insurance, all of that. So because 4 meetings were well in excess of what this board needed, the chair, I think 2 years ago, had proposed a change to the bylaws, which was accepted unanimously by the board, to only require 1 meeting per year, but the board agreed that they would still meet in the interim 2 times per year, above the requirement of the bylaws, just because going from 4 to 1 that quickly, may be too much of a change, and then if the board wanted to go to 1 meeting a year, what the majority of TCCs do, they only meet once a year, then you could do that in the future. So what happened after that bylaw change is the meetings that were set in December were 1 in the summer, 1 in the winter. Now, obviously, that's all that was set for this year as well. A lot of extra meetings has been called, which is the right of the chair and the TCC board to call. But that was the intention and the change that went through those bylaws. So the bylaws used to require 4 meetings a year. Now they only require 1 meeting per year. And when that change happened, the board agreed, not through a motion, but just informally, that they would continue to meet for 2 times a year until they felt that they only needed to meet once per year.
And this gets advertised does it get advertised once we set the meetings? Or it doesn't get advertised until the meetings before the meeting?
It would be up to the secretary, but usually they would be scheduled to run, but you can cancel those advertisements with the newspaper if the meeting would change. Like, this meeting was probably, a schedule was sent to the newspaper last year when the meeting was set, but then we would have had to revise that to say 6:30 as opposed to 2:30 when this board made a change to that.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if we send them.
Yeah.
So-
And Vince, you've been here a lot longer than I have. Does that seem to be correct for
That's
the
correct.
series of events?
That's correct, yeah.
So we can set June meeting and a December meeting, and then any special meeting, because then that can be advertised. And then any special meetings that we want to hold, if we want monthly for 4 months, 5 months, 12, we'll just advertise for each one of them separately.
And so I'm familiar with the township side of things, like the deadlines with advertising for meetings. Is it different here, or what are the guidelines here for if we're gonna advertise for a meeting? How far out does it have to be done?
There's nothing wrong with the sunshine.
Yeah, I certainly won't give legal advice. Again, you guys have a solicitor for that, and to be clear, I'm not a voting member of the board either, but the bylaws have certain requirements. There's certain things that require 5 days notice. In our bylaws, that's not a sunshine requirement at all. Our bylaws require 5 days notice for certain items. But otherwise, we need to follow the Sunshine Act, which we would need to follow anyways, but it's also in our bylaws and in Act 32 that we have to follow that. But there are special requirements. Some people get that confused sometimes with sunshine law. Is there special requirements for townships under the township codes, for school districts under the school district code, which the TCC board is not under either of those codes. So it's just the Sunshine Act as enacted that you guys would have to follow.
Well, for the regular meeting, the second Wednesday of June is June 11th, and the second Wednesday of December is December 10th.
Okay, now I don't think, there's just a lot of girls that meet then. She said she's missing her meeting tonight.
And
So I think we almost
I'm
need to go
trying to
into
get the
the,
ordinance passed, and I'm not
Third.
there to
I
talk
think
about
we
it.
almost need to go into the 3rd week of June.
Yeah.
So you can get away from borough meetings, township meetings.
So you want to look at the 3rd Wednesday?
It doesn't
June
necessarily have to be a
18th.
Wednesday, I'm not saying it has to be, but
June 18th and December 17th are the 3rds.
We're gonna keep 2:15.
no, you
6:30.
cannot.
Yeah, that's up to you guys. We've tried a variety of time over the years. Last year, we had this meeting at 2:30 and 9 municipalities were represented. We have 10 here now, so it's
We met at 4:30, 2:30.
yeah.
We met electronically when COVID first happened, so we've,
I'll make a motion that the meetings for 2025 are June 18th and December 17th, both at 6:30 PM.
I'll second.
What was the, other date, December 17th?
17th, and I believe those are the third Wednesdays.
Correct.
And to be clear, the December 17th, if you still want it that way, will be both a reorganization meeting and then a voting meeting to do those annual requirements of what we just
What we're doing
did
right
here.
now.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't see a problem with
Everyone in favor of the two meeting dates, one June 18th, one December 17th, both at 6:30? Signify by saying aye.
it.
Anyone opposed? All right. Moving to old business and discussion items. The school district does have a line item on the board agenda for tomorrow. I just want to give you guys all a heads up. I wanted to print it out, just read exactly what they're voting on tomorrow. Other than the line item, I have no information, so if anybody has seen that or wanted to talk about it, and that's the board.
Are you gonna read it out? What the line item is, or do you want me to read it?
Do you have it?
Which, it's gonna be the board meeting that was moved till tomorrow night because of the weather last week. The administration recommends that Keystone Central Board votes to cease providing tax collection service to the Clinton Tax Collection Committee as soon as practical. So that is the item on the agenda. Well, here's the thing, I
So-
think that there has to be an understanding that if they act on that item, then we're gonna need to have a special meeting. Because the contract, I believe, is two parts. The first part is if the district, who is the contractor, decides not to do the contract anymore, if the TCC would not agree to that, it would continue for 1 year. It has to be both parties agreeing, and then it will discontinue, I believe is the way I read that in the contract. So, with that being said, if they vote tomorrow night, we're probably gonna need to have a special meeting sooner than later to do a TCC vote.
Cross that bridge when we come to them.
Well, if we're already paying to advertise 2 meetings, it's not gonna cost more to advertise a January meeting. But it would cost more if we have to call a special meeting.
We may need to meet before January though. Depending,
But it's as soon as feasible. Was that off the agenda, what the motion said?
It's practical, yes.
Why do we need to meet before January?
we don't have to, but for somebody else to come in and collect the taxes, it's a smoother transition starting a new year.
Let's just be real honest here with everybody. I know what's going on, okay? And the part that irritates me about this whole scenario is we came in here in September and went through all this stuff that we wanted to discuss. We wanted to, number one, we need a solicitor, obviously. Wanted to amend our bylaws. Then we wanted to discuss the weighted vote and get that fixed. From what I'm seeing, none of this is gonna happen.
So we've had meetings where we could have discussed bylaws, we could have discussed the weighted vote. It wasn't until we were looking at appointing a new collector when everybody came, and now we wanna start something different.
Right.
So we've had these meetings, everybody was notified of the meetings. We could have done this a lot sooner.
I thought that the weighted vote had to be addressed in the bylaws.
It's sent to DCED and they approve it.
But didn't we agree that the weighted vote had to be spelled out in the bylaws?
It is spelled out in the bylaws.
Okay, so if we're gonna change it, it has to be in the bylaws.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
thought you meant actually laid out in the line item by line item.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is regardless of the amount of meetings we've had, and we really couldn't amend those weighted votes until we had a solicitor to change our bylaws, correct?
We had a solicitor,
No, he
No,
quit.
just last month, yeah.
and he did because he felt that there was gonna be a conflict.
Right.
And
So that was like-
that was just
Was that the
last month.
September or was that the October meeting?
We talked about it in the October meeting.
So but we accepted his resignation in October.
We accepted it last month, or in November, in
Remember, we
October.
decided not to accept it because we at least still
Until we
wanted to have
had somebody on board.
on board.
Right. So we just accepted, or we just approved having a new solicitor.
Mhm,
We haven't even got the opportunity to change the way you vote or the bylaws.
you're correct.
Okay,
However, we've had an Act 32 collection for how many years? And it was never brought up before. So we're talking months versus years this could have been taken care of, and it was never taken care of before.
so at the next time we have a meeting, we can put on the agenda to change the way to vote before we do anything else?
You'd have to give notice
Yeah.
under the bylaws on how to change the bylaws, but yeah, you can change the bylaws at any time. I mean, the chairman, which will be you starting in January, can call a meeting and can set the agenda.
Like, I know, Christie, I know you said like 2 months ago about really trying to push for, by the end of the year, close things out. And I had made comments at that
From
time.
financial statement, working in finance,
Right. Right.
it's a lot, not that they can't, not that a company won't be able to do it, but
Right,
it's just a lot cleaner.
I understand that. And I had said that at that time, that I didn't really think that it was, I didn't see how it was possible for us to go through the things that we needed to and to do that properly. And Greg wasn't here at the last meeting, but the prior one, he was here. And I do remember Greg saying that June was a good cutoff because of the fiscal, I don't know what, I forget what you exactly what
The
you said.
school district's fiscal year is July,
Right, so
But for
you made the
tax-
comment about cutting it off in June.
but for municipalities, it's January.
Right,
And the tax office, under Act 32, is required to be a January 1 calendar year. The tax office runs on a separate calendar year than the school district, even though it's part of the school district, it's required to.
I just feel it would be difficult for the school district, but I can't speak for the school district. If I were them, it would be difficult in the middle of their fiscal year. They are the largest entity among us.
right.
And in order to change the bylaws, you do need the approval of the delegate from the district, who holds the majority of the votes in one eye.
Yeah, that's the problem with this whole situation. So, and you're gonna do what you're gonna do coming in here. I know you're pressured one way or the other to make a choice. So it don't matter what any of us say up here do. I'm just being honest, telling you guys what's gonna happen. School board's gonna vote tomorrow night to cancel this contract. It's gonna be done. It's up to this board sitting right here as to if we're gonna agree to it or we're not gonna agree. Christie guaranteed is gonna vote to shut it down, and it does not matter what any of us say. So, I hope everybody understands that. Christie, I said this 2 months ago, that ain't right. And I asked you that night to not vote as a school board person or you're
The delegate.
the delegate from the school.
But she
So-
can't.
Again, we had months.
Yeah, well, she
Years,
can.
we had
No,
years
if
to
she
discuss this.
abstains, we don't have a quorum.
Well,
What if everybody shows up?
She didn't vote.
We don't have 51% of the vote.
So how,
Is that going to change?
We can't.
You can't.
You
I
have to
just
have the
blows my mind. You can
school
have every
board's
single
delegate.
person here.
That's right.
Reasonably,
We had-
you're gonna have to open the bylaws.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to make a proposal to the school board that you wanna change the weighted vote. They're gonna have to agree to it and vote on it at the next monthly
I
meeting.
can't
And then it'll
vote,
come back to us.
I
So the
can't-
process you're talking about is a 2-3 month process.
Oh,
and I can't vote, I asked the solicitor this, I can't vote without the school board telling me, yes, you can vote to lower our weighted vote. So I need that from the school board to say,
As far
yes,
as
you
meeting
can vote
minutes,
that.
special meetings, things like that, there's not a problem
I
with her
guess
voting, but
my-
any significant change, she would have.
and it's not, don't take, I'm not attacking you, but this is, we've been here for 3 months now. Well, I'm talking these meetings since they started here, specifically about this scenario taking
July.
place.
July is when this started, our first meeting.
Us.
I'm talking about this whole, when things got heated here, this scenario, when everybody was alerted about this stuff, it was the beginning of September.
July.
July, you were notified, the first week in August.
Yeah, but our first meeting was August 6th.
So,
Yes,
so
yeah.
Kyle, I understand your issue. And I guess the thing is none of us really created that weighted vote. It's just the way it went through 32. So instead of sitting here complaining about something the way it's gonna go, we'll just gotta move ahead and work with the school board to change that later.
That's, we
I get
completely
that, but-
flipped away from the task that was at hand. And it's like we're starting all over and trying to recreate, and wanting to recreate something that could have been done years ago.
Now,
I just feel like this scenario was okay the way we were working through things until it became reality that this isn't gonna happen by the end of December. And here's the alternative route where it can end.
The school board.
and you gotta remember, it's not her fault.
I
She wasn't here in
I'm
2012.
I'm not
She didn't write
taking,
the
I don't
original
take
draft.
anything personal.
Well, I don't want you to,
understand.
because
Yeah, I
it's-
don't.
Someone that has a question.
Somebody have a question?
Bill,
What?
did you
Bill,
want?
did you have the committee said you had a question?
Oh, I raised my hand because I didn't, do you want me to say something? I'll say.
I was looking up, I'm not sure you're correct on how you're defining a quorum. I'm trying to look it up, that's all. I didn't have a question.
Well, that,
It,
may,
What's with Elizabeth?
Our bylaws say a quorum is established by the presence of voting delegates representing the majority of the weighted vote of the TCC.
that's
yeah,
it.
so
That's
if
in
she's
the-
If
present,
she's present, they got a quorum,
yes,
because it's
okay?
58.
Doesn't matter if she abstains, yes or no.
Correct.
Done.
If she abstains, you don't have a quorum.
No, that's not correct.
That's,
We don't have enough votes
You
to
need
have
an
it pass.
affirmative,
Says the
so
weighted.
under the vote
Could you
required.
read directly from the bylaws, please?
Yeah, I can read. So a quorum, and this is for a meeting quorum, a quorum shall be established by the presence of voting delegates representing the majority of the weighted vote of the TCC. That's section 4 of Article 1.
All right.
Then in section 8, it says vote required for certain decisions, which are the major decisions which are laid out later, which include changing the bylaws. Notwithstanding any other provision of these bylaws, action taken by the board on all major decisions shall be by roll call vote and shall require the affirmative vote of a majority of the quorum.
Let's read that last line, please.
Notwithstanding any other provision of these bylaws, action taken by the board on all major decisions shall be by roll call vote and shall require the affirmative vote of a majority of the quorum.
So it'd be the majority
Okay,
of the
that's
quorum
interesting.
that's present.
So
And
if you're not here, there's not a quorum.
Please don't
But
anybody
if
next
you
to me.
choose not to
I
vote,
feel like this is-
if she chooses not to vote, the others can still, the majority of the voting members make the decision. That's the way I hear what you read.
a majority of the quorum, she would be.
But she has
A
to be
majority of the quorum.
I'm-
She makes the quorum by sitting there.
mhm.
If she doesn't vote, it's the majority of the people that vote. By the way, I listened to what you read.
I'm afraid I
I'm
don't
not
know
a
who you
lawyer.
are. I'm afraid I don't know who you are. Are you a solicitor or attorney?
I am not an attorney, no.
Okay.
That's
I
what
just
said.
didn't know if
I'm
you
not a
were.
How does
lawyer.
it work? Because we did it before in September.
I'll take a look into it.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, we did it in
That's
September.
something for an
She-
attorney.
yeah, that's,
That's right.
I would agree. It would,
is this something
You
that we
might
want to
need-
ask our solicitor about?
Nick, what's your best
Because
guess
that's-
since you're almost an attorney?
I don't wanna take my best guess on that.
All right.
Well, we did do this a couple months ago. We did vote this way. You did abstain from the
We
vote.
abstained, so we had the
We did.
majority, but we abstained.
I did.
Well, either way, it wouldn't have passed, whether
Right.
it was because it wasn't a majority of the quorum.
Which,
Right.
I voted no.
But
You abstained.
You
but
abstained as the school
my-
district's.
I
School
voted
district,
for
and you
South
voted
Renova.
for Renovo.
I
No,
don't
I
know if
voted
by
for
the,
both.
I don't know if by the
voted yes for
language.
Renovo, that
I don't
voted to
know,
go for
why are we
Renovo
having
for
this
the school
argument?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm just speaking my piece. It led into this whole
But
conversation.
I don't know what that piece, Kyle, has to do with.
Does anybody want me to
Because
contact?
Greg,
the
there's
solicitor?
to me, there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things. And we
But
have
this
a
is
board.
the agenda.
I understand that, and this is on the agenda. We're discussing what's gonna take place tomorrow night.
So I think there may be clarification here. If you want the solicitor to interpret the language of your bylaws, I think that's good to do. How Act 32 intends it to be done, DCED sends out, which you guys get every summer, the weighted vote form, which actually has a column where you put in what municipalities are represented at a meeting to make sure a quorum's established, and then it takes the weight based on that, and you actually have to put in yes and no votes for each municipalities at there, and it will show the weighted vote of the vote. So the vote is also weighted according to DCED's schedule that they give the TCC to use.
Right.
They intend that weight to also be voted, or
I
that vote to also be weighted.
I've said this 100 times to people I've talked to. I'm not saying that this third-party route is not the way to go. I feel that it might be the way to go. However, I wish that all the parties involved would have respected this board and allowed us to handle it and not go about the way it's about to go down. That's all I'm saying.
That's right.
So that's not your fault primarily. That's not your fault. So, and I'm not aiming those things at you, but I don't think it's proper for her to go down the way that I feel that it's gonna go down.
So I have a question then. If we would have never did research into the tax office and would have never went and got proposals and just continued about our way, would we be talking about a weighted vote right now?
Who knows? How can we say that? Yeah.
That-
There's a good
that's
chance if this stuff wouldn't have come up, none of us would even be sitting here, because we haven't been here for, but that doesn't give, we still have
No,
we're still a
that's-
board though.
Yeah.
Understood, and we are a committee, we are a board, we
Right.
have a responsibility to attend the
Yeah, you
meetings
woke
that we're
us
a
up,
delegate for.
but,
So that our voices can be heard, and when there's issues like this, and, because I questioned it as a Renova Borough delegate. I said, well, the school district holds over half of the vote, but I didn't go anywhere with it. Well, had I questioned it then and brought it about, maybe we would have hashed that out then, but I didn't.
I just think it's a huge undertaking for this all to take place in 5 months. And I know you guys have said Nick, there's been problems for what, 2-3 years now with this, it appears?
Well, and I don't want to say our tax office operates efficiently, it has audits with no findings. The problem is, there's a cost difference. And now that we have certain turnover, I wanted to alert the school district and the TCC that there's a way that a majority of counties do this that's different than ours. And I wouldn't be doing my job to say, listen, we can restructure and continue to pay what we pay and invest in our local tax office. And if that's what the school board and this board decides, great.
So
But I can't hide the other option, which is what the majority of the state does.
So it's not necessarily that we were losing money, right?
No,
There's just a better alternative.
There's a way
If
to
that's-
keep more of
that's
your
the
tax
debate.
dollars
Right.
instead of spending it on collection.
But what I'm saying is that we're not, the TCC or whatever, the school district wasn't losing money.
Oh, the district definitely wasn't losing money.
Okay,
Because
so
they're
why?
charging us more than
It
any other
depends on what
collector
year
in the
you look
state.
at.
Well, I'm just curious, because Baker Tilly's auditing this whole
Mhm.
thing, why didn't this come up before?
Because, again, we're operating and we're following every aspect of the law.
Right.
As the solicitor told you, though, you guys are paying more than anyone else in the state
Right.
to do that. So it's okay if that's what you want to pay to have a local
Yeah.
office. That's totally within your right and in the school district's right.
Right.
But I thought that my job was, I wouldn't be doing my job without at least alerting you that, hey, as you consider that, you also need to weigh this against it, and it's totally up to you guys and or the school district to make that decision.
And a variety of topics have come up before, because many of you have not been here does not mean that people like Vince and I haven't sat here since 2015 and had conversations about weighted vote. But just because you weren't here doesn't mean that it wasn't talked about. We all know that if we can't get the school district to agree with us, there's nothing that's going to happen.
Right.
And I sat here in 2015, 16,
Those we never had.
17, 18, 19. We appointed Jill, I believe, about 2020. She came 2021, 22, 23. I'm now back again. But when Jill was here, she and Vince and a variety of other individuals that are here definitely came to the meetings, maybe 2 or 3 of them with the school board, but those decisions were made. Because your delegate did not show up does not mean that discussions didn't happen. It means your delegate chose not to participate in those discussions.
I'm talking about the discussions of going to a third party. It seems to me that's fairly new, July, August timeframe, correct?
July is when we put the agenda out, and then
Right.
August is when we held the first meeting.
Right.
And I think Christy and I talked about if there was any business that we should add to this, and I think the reason for this is though, just out of courtesy to you, she can't control what the board does. And she wants to let you guys know that as a voting delegate to the board, if they instruct her to do something, she may have a requirement, and she needs to let you guys know that. She doesn't want that sprung on you that, oh, the board made a decision, nobody even knew about it.
No, and that's what I was getting at, is, to me, it's predetermined.
And honestly, when we had our meeting in August, there wasn't even this many people here.
Yeah.
September there was. September, we had the whole entire,
Yes. That's
horseshoe in
potential
there.
to revote or whatever.
And since then, we haven't had that many people come again.
Well, I know there was at least two that wanted to know, can I do proxy, because they could not, they had meetings tonight, that's
We
why I
have to-
said stay away from.
We have to put that in our bylaws. We
She
have to-
had a meeting tonight.
And I know we talked about it last month, that we don't think that people should be able to proxy vote.
I guess
I
the-
know that, I'm not saying, I'm not
No,
bringing them
no,
up.
yeah.
I'm just
yeah.
saying, there's two more that could have come tonight.
I think the kindest way to put it is, we have somebody working for us that does not want to work for us anymore. Being Keystone Central School District is our contractor, does not want to work for us anymore. Clearly, they're gonna vote most likely tomorrow to terminate the contract.
Well, I think,
Can
I mean,
I say
personally,
something, please?
I think that's up to you,
I'm
Christie.
Go
on the
ahead.
school board, and we don't know what we're doing yet, so I think you're now, I'm in a perennial minority, so I expect.
That's why I'm making my assumptions.
I'm expecting to get, I'm expecting to get outvoted. However, it's not a slam dunk. There is
I
a
understand.
possibility that we will not do it.
Mm-hmm,
We
that's
haven't
right.
even been told about it.
Yeah, they dumped
See,
it on
yours
us.
are being sidetracked too.
Absolutely,
Well,
100%.
no question.
We
100%.
know, we know nothing.
We know nothing.
but
We
this
know
is our,
nothing. We've not known anything until the last 2 or 3 months.
this is our vendor, and it's like if we had Keystone Collections, the Board of Keystone Collections coming to our meeting and talking to us, and several times at several meetings trying to persuade us as a board what decision we should make. In reality, if the school district doesn't want to do this, it is a fact that the school district is charging our municipalities more than any other municipality is paying in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the collection of earned income tax, period. Then, as a privilege, because if you have EIT, it's also pretty nice to have that same entity collect your LST and your business privilege tax if you so choose to collect it, which Castanea does not. However, because that can be cross-referenced, that makes it attractive, that you would put all of those into the same office. They also price gouge us on those, charging us 5%, while they charge themselves 2.5%. Meanwhile, I hate to say it, but Berkheimer Tax Collection collects taxes for the city of Lock Haven, $3 million. Our total cost to Berkheimer, which includes them doing their own audit, them having Act 32 certification and their own insurance, the $3 million they collect, they charge us $5,000. Anyone who pays 5% to have somebody collect their taxes in this day and age is absurd to me. And there are municipalities in this county that are doing that. And I'm telling you, if the school board doesn't, our city council is well on board with having an extra $30,000 in their pocket instead of giving it to Keystone Central for a receptionist at their front door.
I don't think
And they would
anybody's denying
like
that.
to keep that $30,000 to use for the potholes that people paid it for. And that is who directs, basically, the thought process that brings me here. Now, I'm an independent voting delegate, but I also know I would like to make those people kind of happy, but that's a choice I get to make. That's what drives me. You don't have to be beholden to who appointed you. You have to do what you believe is best for the municipality that you serve. I can tell you, even if the school district were to retain this business privilege tax does not have to be collected by the TCC, and we certainly will shop
The
elsewhere.
TCC does not, business privilege tax is not, it's not
Right,
our.
that's what I'm
it's not
saying.
our- Okay, okay.
And nor does LST.
Yep.
So those can certainly be given away and don't have to continue to be through Keystone Central, and we can save money doing that. There is no obligation to use Keystone Central's tax office right now, except this board said that's who's gonna collect earned income tax. If the board doesn't want to do that anymore, the board can certainly go out and get its own proposal. If the contractor
That's what I'm
doesn't want to
saying.
do that anymore, they can give notice to us, we can accept that, or we can reject that. Who knows what the process is when it's rejected, but if we accept it, that means we then have to go out for proposals. Those proposals will definitely result in a cost savings for every single municipality here. Every time I promise myself I'm not going to speak, I speak.
No, that was one
And,
point,
and
Thank you,
maybe,
Rick.
maybe instead of doing the bylaws weighted vote and then a proposal, maybe we should go proposal, bylaws weighted vote.
I think I would have respected the whole situation more if the school board, if administration and school board would have spoke and the school board would have collectively come to this board and said, look, there's problem, whatever the case may be, and just had a complete sit down about it.
That's why
No.
we have been.
No, Nick has been
He's been saying that there's a problem.
I know, but the school board hadn't, from my opinion, and I haven't seen it, they've had nothing to do with this whole scenario.
That's
And
right.
now they're gonna make the decision about it. I sat at the Dunstown Fire Hall and asked 2 or 3 school board members there to engage us about it, and they didn't wanna talk that night. They said this isn't a school board meeting. So they didn't have the decency to discuss things that night when there was questions that could have been answered. But now tomorrow night potentially, they're just gonna make a vote. That's my problem with it. I'm not, they can do it, they have that power, but I'm just saying from an ethical standpoint, I just don't like it, that's all. So they have the right to do that, and so be it. And you have the right to come in here and make that vote and squash the whole thing.
Yeah.
But,
I think to answer your question, Greg, so you guys know, because I think the purpose of this was to talk about what could happen next. If the school board would say, we no longer want to honor this collection agreement, then the 2 choices are you accept that as of whatever date you want, or if you don't accept that, then they have the right after 1 year to terminate, to not renew that, because it's an auto renewal, but they don't need your agreement to terminate it after 1 year.
so if we reject it, it's automatically 1 more year.
Correct.
But
When
from what I'm understanding and seeing and hearing at these meetings, it sounds like the employees within that office have pretty much been, well, 1 retired, correct?
Resign.
Or
We had one transfer to another position in the school district that fit her background
okay,
better than the tax office. One employee resigned,
okay,
and then
Took a
there's.
different job, right?
Or, yeah, she took.
We
a
had 2
different
that
job, yeah,
moved jobs,
sorry.
Right.
Yes.
one within the school district, one elsewhere, and then all be leaving.
mhm,
So it's, I mean, this is the school district's problem, not yours, but
yeah,
if the collection agreement would stay in place, they need to hire 3 people. Whether that's for 8 months or a year, they need to hire people.
right.
If it doesn't, then it's up to the school board how they want to handle that transition, but
That same office, it collects the real estate tax for the school district as well,
correct.
which is still an obligation the school district intends to keep.
I can't speak for the school district,
Have they said otherwise?
not that I've heard.
Not that I heard either. So that office still requires people to collect real estate taxes.
Realistically, right now, I think that if it went that route, there's not gonna be any displacement of employees. If they continue to contract, which our solicitor sat here and we talked about that, they're gonna probably have to be obligated to hire 3 to be able to maintain the proper amount of people to do the amount of work. So then in a year from now, because they're union positions, and something changes in the TCC and we don't use Keystone Central School District as our tax office as our collector, now you're looking at layoffs or furloughs.
And that's not the TCC's.
Correct, but I'm just trying to say that
I'm caught in all of it.
what Kyle's talking about, the school district side of
But
it.
that's why I wish that we could all sit down together. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I like transparency, I like open discussions, and sometimes beating conversations to death. Everybody understands or whatever, that's just,
And I'll be very honest, Kyle, I mean, my question would be, how do you want to do that? Because every school board member and every delegate of this was invited in August with an agenda that specifically said, we want to talk about third-party collections. You have to do that at a public meeting.
right.
You can't bring them, and we asked and tried to do that at a public meeting, and nobody showed up, so I don't know how else to do it.
No, I get it, but that's what I said, over at the Dunstown Fire Hall, there was school board members there that night, and I
And
just
that's why I
pose
went to
some
both
questions.
this committee
can't do
and to multiple school board public meetings
Yeah.
to talk about this, because that was the way to get them both to understand.
And from the get-go, we were inviting school board members, and I think Elizabeth has been our faithful,
Right,
that has attended every single one.
I think that you know, from my perspective, even if I wasn't here in August, I got the paperwork, I read the paperwork, I didn't disagree with the paperwork. I did not show up. However, I always get the paperwork. I get the paperwork every single month that something may go on. So I got July, I got August. I read the proposal, I didn't see a PowerPoint, so I got a PowerPoint. I asked for information. I got the information, I read the information. I didn't need to come to a particular meeting to see that information. But I knew that something big was happening. I followed through on that, even if I couldn't be at the meeting. I said, literally, was there a PowerPoint presentation? Got a PowerPoint presentation, you know? You can follow through and get that information. Not showing up does not mean no information was presented. And I'm not yelling at you, because you have been here. But there are plenty of people who came to that one meeting that we had in Dunstown, and they made a big stink, but that's the first and only time those people showed up to that meeting. And they said they don't know what's going on. Well, maybe it's because you're not involved. I mean, we have people that literally, Kyle, call the city because Woodward didn't plow a street right because they have a Lock Haven mailing address. You know, and you have the same thing in reverse.
Right.
So there's so many people that just aren't connected with what's really happening around them in their community, and that isn't the fault of this board who advertises its meeting and does make public information available. We have a right to know officer. That's not the problem of Green Township, that nobody knows what's happening when something goes on there, because they do have a meeting, they do have minutes, they do have somebody that you can call for zoning or any variety of things. But I'm really tired of people saying that nobody knew any of this was going on, because how did I know? And I didn't even attend the meeting. I knew because I reached out to get the information. I didn't feel like it's right to blame somebody because I didn't show up to a meeting and get spoon-fed information. And there are a lot of people who do feel like that, and they're angry that that didn't happen for them. But that's not fair to the people who have this information and have put it in front of us. And literally, that's the moment that I saw, holy crap, I cannot believe we are paying so much to Keystone's tax office as a subcontractor. Literally 5 times more than other people would charge us.
All right, do we have, we could sit here and talk
No,
about this.
no,
all
I
night.
know.
And I like the conversation, believe me, but, I want to go home.
Me too, and you've got a meeting to go to.
Well, I probably won't make my meeting.
If you're
but
okay
if-
under other
yeah.
business though, just to recommend to you guys as you have some new leadership, there's obviously things you've talked about that you want to cover in the future. You also have a right under your bylaws to create committees. And I think sometimes, as we've seen, it's hard to get this board together. This board still has to make certain decisions. That doesn't give anybody else the authority to make a decision, but it could be easier if you guys want to discuss, do we want to make a committee to review the bylaws to bring a recommendation back? Do we want a committee to review solicitors, or whatever the case, the weighted vote, and bring a recommendation back? That may be easier than full voting TCC meetings, just as a recommendation.
May I ask, under other business, if we could set a January 2025 date for a meeting that can always be canceled, but I do feel like depending on what happens tomorrow night, we still should discuss that in January.
Yeah.
We can set a meeting date, by all means. Can we stay away from January 8th if all possible?
Dear God, yes. I have a meeting with Drake Chemical. 22nd would be not the 3rd, but that's the 4th. But the first Wednesday of that month is New Year's Day. So,
So, hold on,
Wait,
no wonder I'm not.
22nd is a Wednesday night, is that what you're
Yes.
It's the
saying?
4th.
24th?
No, it's
22nd.
It's the fourth Wednesday.
And if that doesn't work, then we'll go to the 29th, because no one has meetings on the 5th week.
That's gonna be the only
Thank you,
time we
Brandon.
I always look for the 5th week.
We might,
That's the
Brandon.
No, it's first
No.
January 1st.
January 1st is a Wednesday, the 29th
It
of
doesn't
January is
show.
the 5th Wednesday.
It
Oh,
doesn't
never
show
mind,
right
never mind.
on
I
your
thought you said
phone.
Monday.
I'll make a
I'm
motion
sorry.
that we hold a meeting January 22nd at 6:30 PM
I'll
here
second it.
in the school meeting.
22nd.
It's quick.
So hopefully the advertisement can show all three and then we'll-
6:30.
And for the advertising, just to be clear, you guys want all of these meetings to be scheduled here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the
And
district
may I-
will have it, for now.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything to bring?
That's up to the public if you
Oh,
want to.
go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Please, double check, verify, but in your bylaws, it states you can have electronic participation. Okay, I just want to let you know that. Please verify it, but it's in your bylaws.
I looked at the bylaws and I didn't see anything that, we talked as a committee and decided not to hold virtual meetings until it's either listed out in our bylaws how we will hold our meetings for voting, attendance, public speaking, and we haven't discussed our bylaws yet. So that's,
Why?
It's right in there,
It's
page
The
4.
page
bylaws
4,
don't
it's
say
already in
that
your
you can
bylaws.
hold a,
okay, 'cause we-
the bylaws don't say that you can hold a virtual meeting. It says that if a delegate's not available in person or virtually, they can do this, but there's no provision that talks about how this board can hold a virtual meeting.
We had this discussion already, we have no policy on that. We
You have
need
a policy drafted, but you
Yes.
didn't adopt it.
We didn't adopt it.
Until we have a policy, we shouldn't let people willy-nilly participate because it's set.
Okay, I just wanted to- Okay, thank you. Just want to let you know.
By the way, the 22nd, yeah.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Why?
I move to adjourn.
Yep, thank you. Second, Ashley?
Please.
All right, thank you.
Oh, that's more to say.
Well, I'm the chairman.
Oh.
Christie, I'll scan you those written minutes and then try to.